let's start from the beginning. So that's our office in Vienna. We are, that's an old photograph. We are 25 people at the moment. And regarding the housing situation, because I will mainly talk about housing, and we are an architectural office focused and specialized in housing. And regarding housing, I think coming from Vienna, we have to confess that we live in a land of milk and honey. We have a very privileged situation. Andreas Hofer was talking yesterday about the different actors and the circumstances. So we have this 2 million people in Vienna, and 77% of the flats are rental, and 220,000 are still owned and will be still owned by the city of Vienna. So it's municipal housing, a quarter of the whole housing stock. And another quarter, a little bit more, is owned or still owned and was erected by subsidized limited profit developers. So half of the housing market and half of the housing stock is under very, very high control. And due to that, very affordable with this combination with very high qualities. So it's a very unique situation. Thanks to this social democratic and then before socialist party that invented this Red Vienna strategy in 1919, so 105 years ago already. But we're still profiting from that, and it's no wonder that Vienna is one of the most livable cities in the world, and mainly because of that, because we have half of all the housing market is very affordable and very accessible. So, and to show you a little bit where we come from, we have, there, okay. We have done several housing buildings in the last nearly 20 years. And 14 years ago, we started to focus on participatory processes. So we have specialized on this work with participative methods, working with groups of 30 to 60 up to 100 people. So with medium scale groups of people. And we specialized on these co-housing processes. So we realized in the last, I really would like, okay. We specialized on these co-housing participatory processes and developed a lot of them, I think 10 or 12 projects in the last, maybe do you have another one? Because it's really, every second time it's not working. Or it just takes some time, okay. And yeah, we did 10 or 12 of those co-housing projects in the last years. Working very closely together with future groups. So a participatory process, which is maybe not that intense like Alejandro showed us yesterday in Chile, but which brings still the bigger questions to the table. And talking of participation, we have to be quite clear about this role of us as architects. So that's a picture of Mies van der Rohe. And no matter if I appreciate his work, this picture says a lot about this understanding of the role as an architect, no? And I really don't agree to this role as an architect as part of our society. And in the 70s and in the 80s, we had this really methodological shift where some actors, they redefined this role of architect. So that's a picture of maybe the wildest participatory process that took place in the German-speaking world. It was in the early 80s. It's Frei Otto, the Öko-house in Berlin, which is really had an extremely high degree of openness and participation. And you can't even see who is the architect. You can't even see who is the engineer. You can't even see who is the user. So it's really changing completely this level of, or this role of architects. And talking about that, participation is, we have a totally different knowledge about that. So, okay. Brings me a little bit out of my concept. We have a completely different knowledge about that nowadays. So I can really recommend you to read this book. It's also available in English. Don't be afraid to participate. And it sums up in only 150 pages. It sums up like the most important strategies and the most important methods and also the organizational forms of participatory processes. And when we work with groups, we work with very different methods. So from very playful methods to more conventional methods of participatory processes. So I would really like to show you some pictures of that. And drawing pictures and drawing plans and also working with mood boards so that we can talk about atmospheres and qualities of space and of these living surroundings. And that's one of my favorite methods. That's a method for programming buildings, working with these hexagonal cards with 2 or 3 different colors to program a building jointly within a group within 1 hour. So you can easily do that. And yeah, and we're working on these 3 different levels of participatory design. So with the whole group of up to 100 people, with smaller working groups, which you can see here now, and also individual participation from time to time. And talking about that, it's always a question how those projects are organized. So we are often working with organizational models, decision-making models. So we're not only architects that give some of our work in the hands of the users, but we are also asking ourselves how society can be organized, how groups of people can be resilient, and how communities can start to live. One project I want to talk about is Gleis 21, a co-housing project that we finished 5 years ago. And it's a building. It was the first co-housing that we did in Vienna, consisting or realized in timber construction. And we start all this project with a vision workshop. And this vision workshop, the group came out with 3 sentences, which were living solidarity inside and outside the community, creating a sustainable life, and relying on social encounters. And I can show you some examples for that. So for example, living solidarity inside and outside the community means that in the tradition of Viennese co-housing projects, they realized for apartments for refugees, for unattended refugees, they are hosting in the building, and they implemented also a cultural association running a quite intense cultural program. And 2 of these refugees, they are responsible for taking care of this cultural event space. And they have done, after the start of the world war here, they have done several German courses, psychological groups, supporting refugees, also for other people in need. So yeah, and there's Gleis 21 has a lot of cooperations with different actors in the field, so with social organizations, but also with theaters, up to the Burgtheater, which is the most important theater in Vienna. So for programming this cultural space. And it looks like that. So it's a 6-story apartment building, a co-housing with 34 individual flats, of which 4 are for these unattended refugees. A lot of common rooms and the commerce, like a music school and the coffee space. It was one of the first buildings in Vienna within the subsidized housing market realized in timber construction. So that's really not equally in price. So it's a little bit more expensive still, by 5 or 10% than building in mineral massive construction. But it was one of the very first buildings in Vienna in this height built in timber construction because of ecological reasons, which I will talk later about. So yeah, that's the the appearance of the building. So it's a very long building, 60 meters long, with an outer corridor. And maybe I was so much inspired by the Polish colleagues before, because they were talking about this randomness and this succession. So about two aspects or strategies that also influence us while we are doing architecture. While we're doing architecture and giving away some of our design power to the users. So it's really this chaotic appearance, this succession, and also this randomness is something that really is interesting to us. Yeah, and that's the public ground floor with a coffee, with an event space, very much opened to public users. And we bring again, we bring light to a sunken courtyard. So we have the music school there, situated in the basement. So we have a commerce space situated in basement, making the whole project more easier to finance. And that's this function room, event space, and with a lot of theaters, workshops, concerts happening there. Yeah, and maybe that's this ground floor shows quite well the way we work. So we always work with a very, very simple system, a very simple layout of the main structure of our buildings. And within this main structure, we have a lot of flexibility and a lot of variety and a lot of individualization in this planning process. Yeah, and the effects of this project, they are quite diverse, I would say. So of course, it's fostering democratic competences. And it's always, those projects are always drivers of sustainability in all kinds of senses. So ecological sustainability, not only, but also social sustainability, and also economical sustainability, because they are preventing speculation. So it's always collective ownership. It's not a Baugruppe like you would know it in Germany. But it's they are realized with collective ownership, so securing affordability on the long run. And it's also bringing inclusion, integration into our neighborhoods. Next slide. So, and that's why this project was awarded with the new European Bauhaus Award 2 years ago. And these three topics, beautiful, sustainable, together, they sound really nice, no? Next slide. And that was the festival in Brussels then. Next slide. But this prize and all the other prizes, they made me think. And unfortunately, as the history doesn't come to an end, also this history is not coming to an end. So is it really beautiful? Is this really sustainable? And is this really together what we are doing or what we have been doing? Next slide, please. So let's start with together. Next. So that's a mosaic done there. Next. Done by some artists together with neighbors, together with refugees. Next. And installed outside the building. Next. And there's a coffee shop, a very inclusive coffee shop in the ground floor of the building. Next. Which looks like that. Next. And there are art exhibitions. Next. Like that. Next. And smaller workshops for smaller groups and companies and initiatives and NGOs, but also cinema evenings for the neighborhood. Next. Or parties. Next. Or workshops for kids. I think some of your kids attended to some workshops in this house, so that's really a nice story to tell. Next. Next. And the project had a lot of media appearance. So that's a screening of a documentary about the project in the Austrian broadcast company. Next. And concerts and so on. Next. And of course, there are a lot of meetings within the group of people there. So there are about 80 people living in the house. They have a lot of people. They self-organize all this neighborhood program. They're living there. They run the place together and they own the place. So that's really like a very resilient, very well-functioning community. Next. So I would say, yes, it's one of these aspects is really true. So it's really together and it's really building resilient, working, strong communities, which are really important nowadays. Next. So what about beautiful? Next. So I can't really, because I'm not objective. I'm the architect of the building. I cannot really talk about beauty in this sense, but I can tell you a story. What is also beautiful in this context for me, that we spent all the money that we got from the European Commission for the prize that we spent for a scholarship program. And we invited 4 participants and finalists of the NEP Prize 2022 from Lithuania, Portugal, Czechia, and France to spend 1 month each in Class 21, stay there, work with the neighbors and make a final presentation about their insights about, beautiful, sustainable, and together. So what it means in reflection to this program, what these 3 words mean for them in reflection to the co-housing project. Next. Yeah, next. So, and the third question is this sustainable? We were awarded with a lot of prizes for this building. And let's take a deeper look now. Next. So for example, at 3 components, at the hybrid timber construction, at mineral wool, at district heating. Next. Hybrid timber construction, which was very innovative at that time. We constructed this building in 2018, 2019. Next. And looking from a point of view of 2024, so from now looking back, I have to say that it's quite a silly thing to do, to combine CLT with concrete to a prefabricated hybrid timber construction, and then to pre-mount it. Everybody was really glad about that, this innovation. But when you look at it from a circular economy point of view and an emission point of view, you should not do that anymore. Next. Mineral wool. We had, because of fire regulations, we had to insulate this building with mineral wool. Something that it's better than styrofoam. I think it's just garbage. There's no recycling process. There is no way of treating that in the end of life. So it's just garbage that we have to throw away in the end. So we should stop at that. Next. District heating. So in Vienna, we have this district heating, which is, for a long time, it was really the thing to do and really supposed to be very green. Unfortunately, that was not the whole story. Next. Because we're still using gas, unfortunately, not unfortunately, that's the wrong word, mostly Russian gas. So we are still heating, district heating, which is supposed, or the city of Vienna tells us that it's very green. We're still effectively getting 60% of the heat of this district heating out of burning gas, which is unbearable. Next. So I would say from the point of view of now, I would say this building is not sustainable at all. I don't know, but it's not sustainable enough for sure. Not to answer the questions that we have to ask ourselves. Next. So I'm quite sure you will know this one. This is the average temperatures, 1 stripe per year. And I don't know which colors they will use in the next 10 or 20 years on the right side. I think we will run out of colors. Next. And to be totally clear about that, let me put it that way. We don't have to save the planet. It's not about saving the planet. The planet will be quite fine without us. But it's really to save the creatures, the life of the creatures that we are in love with. And that's my that's my youngest daughter. And when I realized that she probably will live in 2100 and all the curves, all the predictions of the IPCC and so on, they are ending in 2100, I was really like, it was really a shock because she probably will live at that time. And it's not only about humans, and that's why I was so happy about the presentation of the guys from Poland before. It's also about other creatures like plants and animals that we have fallen in love with. So it's really about not saving the planet, but saving the lives of all these creatures. Yeah, next. So what we know. We know very much because you have to read an IPCC report consisting of 3,677 pages. So we know quite much. Next. But for example, we know that we as a mankind, humankind, we emitted since the time that I attended school, high school, we emitted more CO2 than in the whole history of mankind before. So that's still astonishing for me, but only in the last a little bit more than 30 years, we emitted more than in all the time before. And we know, next, that all those curves leading to climate neutrality, being able to fulfill the goals of the Paris Treaty, they will be vertical in some years. And that's not actual anymore. That's lying, because in Austria, our budget is over in 2.5 years. So going on like that, we have spent all the CO2 that we are allowed to emit for being able to fulfill the Paris Treaty Agreement in 27. So that is an old graphic. Next. And we also know that this average temperature that you see at the left side, which is also not right anymore, because last year it was 1.63 degrees above pre-industrial area times. We also know that this is not the whole truth, because on the average temperature is quite different on where we have land and where we have sea. And in countries like Austria, but also in Ukraine, it's even more the average rising of temperature. I notice. Yeah, next. So, and we know this 9 planetary boundaries that were installed as maybe the best model to talk about all that 15 years ago by a Swedish change is only one of these 9 planetary boundaries, and we have like really hit 6 of them right now. So 6 of 9 we already have crossed. Next. So, and what's the role of the building and construction industry? I didn't bring along this slide with these 3 numbers because I thought everybody knows it, but I want to repeat them. 38, 50, 80. So let's start with the 80. 80% of all the material that we use are spent for constructions. All the material used worldwide is spent for some kind of construction or running buildings, and 80%. 50% worldwide of all the garbage, let's say it like that, comes out from construction. And the hardest part for me is this 38. 38% of all greenhouse gas emissions come from erection and running buildings, not only buildings, but of this construction and building part of the world, of this sector. 38%. So our role is really the hugest to answer these questions and take responsibility in this part. Next. And 2.8, so it's not even 3, 2.8% of worldwide greenhouse gas emissions come from flights. It's not an invention to take a flight and spend, I mean, sorry, you can't at the moment, but for the others that are outside of the Ukraine, it's not an invention to take some more flights, but only 2.8% of this greenhouse gas emissions come from flights worldwide. And next, and up to 7 or 8% of all the emissions come from only the production of cement. So only one material. If you add steel to the right side, you would be with reinforced concrete, you would be by at 11-12% of all the greenhouse gas emissions, only out of 2 materials that we use for building. So be aware of that. Next. And we go on like that. That's my neighboring village where I come from. That's in Lower Austria, only 30 kilometers from Vienna. And we really dig away the half of the mountain to get chalk and make cement out of it. Next. So we really have this really huge knowledge about climate change and this ecological responsibility that we have. But yeah, we take very little action. Next. Next. So I think one reason for that is because we always had this understanding of sustainability as 3 pillars: social, economical, and environmental sustainability. Next. And in this term, we have to change this understanding of sustainability levels. So, of course, we have big social questions, but in a world with this planet overshooting the planetary boundaries, the environmental questions and sustainability questions, they must be above all. Next. So we are asking ourselves some central questions for the last 2 or 3 years. Next. How can we plan and build within the planetary boundaries? We don't have really answers to that. Next. How can our work contribute to reduce greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, not only lowering the impact, but really reducing it? We don't know. Next. And how can we make better use of existing resources to create future-proof living spaces for everyone? Next. And I just want to highlight 2 examples how we try to do that. One thing is to understand that even better. Next. So that's 8-story subsidized housing with 111 flats done in timber construction with a research program parallel to the planning and construction side. And we wanted to know exactly, will we manage to erect that with a net zero emissions in the erection and in the operational phase? And we will not. We will not manage to do that because of fire regulations, because of statics, even though it's completely constructed in timber. Next. Next, that's the life cycle phases that we did. Yeah, next. And we compared quite intensively on, I don't know, 100 pages, different materials, different slabs, different outer walls in 4 different variations for the whole building. So together with a big research team, and we did analysis on this slab level, so on this constructive level, but also for the whole building. So that's just for showing a slab of CLT with a quite normal estrich and so on, compared. So it's just the emissions. So there's a 0 line in the middle, then it's the emissions and the storing of carbon, and compared to a reinforced concrete slab. Next. So it's -100 and +100 kilos CO2 per square meter, -100, +100. And then we analyzed the whole building. So how these emissions in the erection phase, they are balancing for this whole building of 14,000 square meter BGF. And the interesting, sad thing for us was, because the basement is done in concrete and the staircases are done in concrete. We have the same emissions in concrete. Then we can store CO2 in the wooden construction. So although I would say 80% of the construction is done in timber, this 20% of concrete, they cause so much emissions that we don't realize to be climate neutral. Next. And what's really important to understand these emissions. So when do these emissions occur? So that's a life cycle analysis. Do we have these emissions in the erection phase, so in this first 1.5 years, or in the operational phase over 50 years or 100 years? So when these emissions occur, because it's not the same thing physically. So the most important thing is what we do right now, and not what is done in 100 years, or to divide that. Next. So to take a really deeper, closer look at the effects of our work, and the other strategy would be to use as much a degree of renewable materials as possible. So to work with renewable materials. Next. And the Auenweide is a good example, which was finished 2 years ago. Next. And it's constructed as a timber construction with with straw insulation and clay on the inside walls. So there are not so many questions about circularity then. Next. Next, so it's 25 apartments, individualized, collectively owned. Yeah, next. Next. And yeah, and we protected the existing wood there, although it was it's a building site. And maybe we can end with this one saying I really like very much. It's a quote of Barbara Buser, a Swiss architect, specialized on reusing building materials. And she always says we have to use wood, straw, clay, and everything which is already there. So, and I think if we stick with this quote, some questions are really easy to answer. Next. 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 Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Marcus. Thank you very much for such a profound lecture. And what I really like in it is that you have this emphasis on different aspects in working with them, in working with which we can create actually livable and welcoming spaces from the beginning of the project to the exact layout of the apartment. Thank you very much for this. І ми маємо час на одне коротке питання. Ми, на жаль, виходимо з часу, тому так, я бачу, ось є чоловік. Будь ласка, дайте мікрофон. Do you have headphones?
Oh, can you translate it?
Yeah, I can translate it.
Yeah, thank you, Marcus, for your inspiring but a little bit sad presentation. I have a short question about not the building, but the land plot you locate your projects. Is it any binding obligations to have the certain percentage of biologically active surfaces in Austria or in Vienna, or maybe any regulation in guidelines?
If there is a regulation?
Yeah, regarding the biologically active surfaces, like share, not to have all allocated with the construction. Because I know in some countries there is certain regulation. So you should leave some part of land plot with water, vegetation, green roofs, and so on.
There are some regulations, especially in Vienna. In the countryside, there are less, but in Vienna, there are some regulations for green roofs, which are very strict now, which became very strict in the last 3, 4, 5 years. And for green and blue infrastructure, so to leave some part of your site without any Versiegelung. I don't have the word now. You know what I mean. So in Vienna, it becomes stricter every year, these regulations.
Sorry, we have no time for any questions anymore. I'm sorry about this, but thank you, Markus. Thank you very much.